Hello, everyone, and welcome to Life.EV, your weekly deep dive into values and entrepreneurship. This is episode number 14, and I'm Ajit Panicker. I lead Nova and Pureblu from the air conditioning domain. And as usual, we will talk on the paths of business growth and personal value creation. We do this every Saturday at 11 a.m., and these are transformative talks on balancing success and values in our lives. So join Life.EV for insights on living and leading with purpose. And as usual, I have Vivek Asrani with me. How are you doing, Vivek?
I'm doing very well, thanks, Ajit. How are you doing?
Absolutely good. So Vivek is the driving force behind Camo Fastener Company, a trailblazing company in the industrial fastener sector. What sets Vivek apart is his deep engagement with the exploration of values. For close to 4 years, he has dedicatedly penned his reflections on this topic every week. You can get hold of all these insightful thoughts on his website, vivekasrani.com. Vivek's also authored a book, One Day at a Time, Reflections from Time of Silence, which further delves into his journey and insights. This thought-provoking read is available on Amazon, offering readers a chance to engage with his profound understanding of values and their role in both personal and professional realms. Join us as we delve into this rich discussions with Vivek on Life.EV. On today's episode, we talk to you about what brings about the best in us. So, Vivek, let's hear your reflection on this.
In sports, it's called being in the zone. And sports people go through this phase in their life where there is a patch, what they call a purple patch, and they're like in the zone and they're like at their best. And then suddenly they go through a very lean patch. And a lot of coaches and psychiatrists and others, who work with sports people, they really try and figure out what does it take to always be in the zone. And I think it's equally true for each one of us as individuals, whether it be in our personal life, our professional life, businesses, community work, wherever we are, whatever we are doing. Because end of the day, Ajit, each one of us is gifted with a limited life. So first of all, life itself is a gift, and then we know it's limited. So the one thing which we all want is to be happy and bring out the best from within and bring out the best in ourselves. And my question has always been to myself, and I've observed people around, that what is it that brings out the best. So I have written a reflection on this, and I'll just share some of the points. And there were five salient points which I believe, if we reflect on, can really bring out the best in us. So one is external triggers, and each one of us would have experienced this, that when we are faced with a dire situation, a crisis, suddenly there is something in us that kind of overtakes, and it really delivers the best in us. We've seen it during exams, where closer to the exam we've given it our best. But external triggers, by virtue of them being external, cannot be permanent. When the trigger goes, so does the performance. And therefore, to constantly live waiting for external triggers cannot bring out the best in us always. So that kind of led me to asking the question, what is it that can be permanent? So I said, then it has to be internal. I can't be waiting for external triggers. So my second point is that, you know, living in an inspired mood all the time really brings out the best in us. Now you'll say that, look, it's good to hear that, good to say that, but how can one be in a constant mood of inspiration? And I think for me personally, the love for life is what creates, to a large extent, that constant feeling of inspiration within, and that I find brings out the best in me. So when I shift the focus from what's happening out there to the way I'm feeling in here, even in a difficult situation, brings out the best in me. I remember I was once going to the income tax office, and somebody asked me, where are you going? I said, I'm going to the IT. And they said, oh my God. I said, no, actually, I'm looking forward to it. So they looked very surprised. I said, because A, I've never been there before, and B, I'm actually enthusiastic to see what this experience is going to be like. And it was a difficult discussion with the officer. And I remember navigating through that over those few meetings, coming out successful. But the reason I was successful is not because I was over smart or I tried to play the system. I was just so enthusiastic about attending to this issue. So this love for life and the zeal and zest, I think, always brings out the best in us. The third is linked to that is the joy within. If we live for joy, then when we get what we want, we are happy and we bring out the best. But when we don't get what we want, we are down and we are sad and we're not feeling too good, then we're not bringing out the best from within. So if we flip that around and say, rather than living for joy, living with joy, that brings out the best from within. The fourth aspect is our ego. I think ego, at one level, yes, it propels us and it drives us, but it's a very narrow driving force. It can be one of the largest limiting forces as well. So I have found, Ajit, that when the purpose becomes greater than the ego, that is what I'm doing and why I'm doing it, becomes larger than the I am doing it, I find at that moment or in that phase, I'm bringing out the best from within. And the fifth aspect is empathy. When I, and I've experienced this, that when I have felt deeply for a cause or for somebody, my willingness and ability to really go beyond the call of duty and really surprise myself at times has been there. And then when I've sat back and I said, what happened over here? And why did I really do so well for myself in this situation? I found that it was coming from a deep sense of empathy, which is again a reflection of love. So, yes, external triggers, the love for life, the joy within, purpose being larger than ego, and bringing out and connecting with the deep empathy within, brings out the best. And I'll just quickly read a paragraph from the reflection which I've written in my book as well, that brilliance does not have to be accidental or occasional. A light only flickers when the connection is loose. When we find ourselves flickering and not giving our best, we need to only strengthen the connection with that charge of inspiration within. And when we are inspired, joyful, and purposeful, the best will follow. Ajit, you're on mute.
Sorry. So I kind of what you were saying while you were saying that, I wanted to actually go back on one of those things that you spoke about as the external factors that you react to and external situations that bring out the best in you, and that's not sustainable. I need you to throw a little more light around this as to what exactly in the real world situation, what could be that external situation that is not sustainable, and why is it that a larger purpose is more sustainable?
We go through three phases, when we do something. So one is, the first phase is when we initiate something. It's easy to initiate something because we are enthusiastic, it's something new, it's something different, and we want to, and the mind is always looking for something new and different to do. The same in our businesses as well. The second phase is we need to keep involved and we need to not, let the initial enthusiasm die down and then we start something and then we stop and we start something new. And many people, and same goes for my life as well, at some point when I look back, I might see a lot of well begun, half done, and forgotten initiatives, which used to happen and now it's happening much less. So the second phase is just making sure that I'm involved. Now, the involvement part, up to a point, is sustainable, but then the mind gets tired, the body gets tired, you get bored, you're doing more of the same. So how do you keep yourself going? And therein comes the third aspect of anything we do, which is making it impactful. Impact obviously sustains us, and impact is something that keeps us going. And impact is in the purpose as to why am I doing something. I remember when I started my new division and with a very small capital, and I've spoken about that earlier. Initially, I started it with a sense of survival. I engaged and I kept going, and I was involved because I needed to just kind of build some momentum. And then one day I said, why am I doing what I'm doing? And I said, I want to create something beautiful. And that was the word that came to my mind. And it wasn't just a romantic idea about business. I said, I want to create something really beautiful. Let it be small, it doesn't matter, but whoever touches it, whichever stakeholder comes in touch, in connection with our business, should feel some kind of an impact. And that purpose, Ajit, gave me a kind of a constant mood of inspiration, which overcame some of the hardships and the challenges. And I continued doing the same thing. I would go to the hardware markets of India, I would sell to the dealers, get rejection, get some success, collections, cash flows, market share, quality issues, service issues, all of that. Continue doing it. But what kept me going was that we want to create something, a brand or something beautiful. In fact, I was in Delhi just 2 weeks ago in Chandni Chowk. And one of my dealers, two of our dealers, in fact, said this to me. He said, आपके कंपनी में कुछ अलग है, आपके साथ बिजनेस करने में हमको अच्छा लगता है क्योंकि आप जिस तरीके से बिजनेस करते हो वो थोड़ा अलग से है. We are transacting with them, but I think the culture and the way we do things is coming out. So that, Ajit, to me is an example of how the purpose, uh, when it's larger than the ego and it's not driven from outside, can be sustainable. And therefore, in my mind, a spirit of, inspired self forgetfulness, inspired self forgetfulness is really the answer. When I was building the factory, which was thrown me completely out of my comfort zone, I kept reminding myself why I'm doing it. And I went through that whole process and I loved it, every minute of it, even though it was dealing with the sand mafia, standing in the midst of that construction site, managing all the challenges, right? But I loved every minute of it. The same thing happened to me, and I'll go back to my college days because some of my biggest learnings in life have come through some of my experiences in college. I was given the responsibility of running this event in Malhar, which was in the canteen, and to reinvent it with something cultural and conforming to what we wanted to do as a youth festival. And I had no clue what we should do. I had no playbook. But what kept me going was not how people will view me and how it will look, because then that would be the external trigger and the self limiting ego. I kept thinking about two things: the audience sitting in that canteen, those five, 600 people, and the fact that we're doing this for college, and that whatever we do is going to be, reflection of Xavier's. And because I just kept these two things in mind all the time, Open House, which was the event we created, turned out to be really nice. So that has been my Ajit experience with this. I don't know. You would have also had some experiences with, you know, the external triggers and what keeps you going and what brings out the best in you.
Oh, actually, while you're talking, I was just thinking about this little incident that when I go back and think into the past. I had that situation where one of my principals actually decided that they needed to move out on their own. At that time, it was frustration. I spent 12 years, my best 12 years. I wanted to build this huge company. It was being unfair to me and everything. So the whole external influences, listen, I'm going to fight back and I'm going to build another company with another brand. So I stepped out on that front only to realize that, listen, am I going to spend my time only just trying to prove a point? It just doesn't make sense. After some time it burns out because that's not something that is so uh, that's not so inspiring enough actually to chase it. Okay, it happened, move on. But that was a good thing that happened, because at that point of time I said, hey, listen, can I do something bigger? Like how we were talking about an impact. Can I fix some of the problems that the industry faces? And that's what led to my new venture. Can I, now the whole driving force is, can you fix a lot of the industry problems? And that's the big impact that you can create. So I kind of relate to exactly what you're saying. Sometimes the sustainability is not just on that external factor.
Mm.
it's about the, you get inspired by the larger purpose in terms of how much impact can you make. And from that also comes another question which you've actually written well in the book. It says about, you know the ego and how it could limit ourselves. And I think you should throw a little more light around that. Where does that ego play come in when you want to pivot towards an impact from a external source?
Yeah. So I'll, go back to college days and I'll take that same example. So that very event, which came from inspiration and became really good, and in a way, I got a lot of recognition, became a little popular in college, made me egoistic. So that very thing which was driven from inspiration led to my ego suddenly becoming big. And I didn't realize it at that point of time, but my body language, and the way I would then conduct myself, uh, of course, I keep reminding myself I was all of 18 at that point of time, but that's no excuse. And that one thing which I wanted when I had joined college was to be head of this youth festival. And when I went for the interview, the first thing the panel told me, they said, but from last year's review, we got the sense that people are not happy with you. What you did was very successful, but and suddenly the penny dropped. I said, my God, my shift from inspiration to ego became my biggest downfall and stumbling block. So I didn't get that position. I continued then playing the role of that event head for that open house event. But today, when I look back, Ajit, thank God I had that setback early in college, because it taught me the biggest lesson that if I have to keep delivering my best, I have to keep connected to the inspiration and keep my ego in check. Because sometimes when we get successful, we tend to get carried away. And carried away means what? It's the ego is overtaking the inspiration. So I keep or try to anchor myself to the why I'm doing it rather than what am I doing and who's doing it. So this balance between inspiration on one side and ego on the other side, if that is well managed and kept in check, it brings out the best in us. If the inspiration takes us to a level, but the ego overtakes, suddenly we find things are going haywire. So that's been my you know real experience early in my life, with my ego being my downfall. But thank God it happened, because it really taught me early enough what to look out for as I went along in life.
Wow, amazing. So that's a nice way to look at what brings the best out in us. Well, that was thought provoking and some deep insights. It certainly gives us all plenty to ponder about the balance between exploring values and business growth. To our viewers, I encourage you now to keep these ideas to yourself. Share this episode with your friends, colleagues, and family. Ask them, what do you think? Spark a conversation and see where it leads. Well, that's what we have time today for. And we'd love to hear from you. Join the dialogue on our social media platforms. Share your questions, your learnings, and the insights you've gained from this episode. It's through these shared experiences and perspectives that we all grow and learn. So don't hesitate to reach out and contribute to this ongoing conversation. Your voice matters in shaping a more ethically driven business world. So that's it for today. And join us again next week for another enriching episode of Life.EV, where we continue our exploration into the fascinating world of exploring values in our lives. We're looking forward to diving deeper into these critical discussions in our next session. So see you next week, where we'll unravel more insights and perspectives that shape our ethical compass. Thank you, Vivek. As usual, it is always fantastic to hear you. And see you next week. And to all our viewers, we'll see you next week, next Saturday at 11 a.m. Thank you very much. Thanks a lot.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Ajit.
Vivek.
Thanks. Bye.